Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on unfolding the multifaceted growth levers for the Indian pharma market. This is the episode 4 of our IPM Diaries initiative. So what we will be covering today in this topic is we will look at how the healthcare demographics of India has evolved. And in shadow of these healthcare demographics, we will also look at evolution of the Indian pharma market, how these demographics have influenced the performance or growth of the Indian pharma market. There are different types of players, big and small, in this Indian pharma market. We will also look at the role of each player, how they have influenced the market. And we will also look at some other aspect in terms of branded products, generic products, Jan Aushadhi, how they are influencing this market. While we keep on talking about the Indian pharma players, there are other key drivers as well, like government initiatives, COVID-triggered innovations, and other infrastructural developments which influence the Indian pharma market. So to start with, we will look at the healthcare demographics. This becomes a very important slide because looking at this progression, we get to understand why the market is behaving the way it is behaving. Let us look at where we stand in terms of population today. So this is the population evolution graph. The pink one talks about the senior citizens. The blue one talks about the population in the age of 21 to 64. And the yellow one is the one which is the younger population, or the population in the age group of below 21 years. So if you look at how the population has evolved, it's very interesting. In fact, this is where we stand today. This is 2024, and the population as of today is 1.4 billion. Now, the composition of this population, if you look, almost 50% of this population comprises of people in the age group of 21 to 64. When we talk about 21 to 64, it is essentially the age group where professional life starts for a younger guy, and for the elderly people, the professional life is still not over because 60 is no longer considered as an age of retirement. Now, in this age group where people are in the quest to generate wealth, they actually neglect a lot on their health. Now, declining mortality rates and increased healthcare awareness ensures that our working age population is likely to be more than 90 crores for the next 4 decades. Now, my first statement and this statement may sound little contradictory, where I say that there is a neglect on health because we are busy generating wealth. But healthcare awareness in our country is actually more of a reactive phenomena and not a proactive phenomena. I will go and bother about my sugar levels once I get detected with diabetes. I will go and bother about my cholesterol once I start getting that uneasiness and I see a higher cholesterol level. So this healthcare awareness, had it been proactive, then probably the situation would have been different. India is home to over 18% of the world population and has a literacy rate of around 78%. And because of this, Indian population or India as a country becomes a very attractive segment even for the MNCs to enter India. That's the reason why we see a lot of innovations coming to India today. So this population demographics makes healthcare opportunity in India a very enticing one for many. However, it's not very easy to capture the entire opportunity that we have. Reason being, the first one is the urban-rural divide. Almost 70% of the Indian population resides in the rural segment, and only 25% of the healthcare facilities support this segment. As far as the epidemiological shift is concerned, if I look at where we were in the year 1990, almost 38% of the cases were because of the non-communicable diseases or the lifestyle diseases. 25 years down the line, this proportion has moved from 38 to 62%. Unfortunately, I have these numbers for year 2016, but had I had the numbers for the year 2025, probably this 62% would have been slightly more. Now, what is the composition of the 62%? The composition of the 62% is majorly 66% is contributed by cardio, diabetes, and obesity segment. Also, if I were to look at insurance, so when you're talking about the ability to pay, first of all, the ability to pay of a normal person is not very high, and the population covered under public health insurance or voluntarily covered under private health insurance is around 70%, not necessarily covering all the expensive treatments. Almost 30% of our population is still uninsured. While we keep on talking about the GDP of the country improving, people becoming richer, India is, though it is one of the fastest growing economies, it is also one of the most unequal countries as far as wealth distribution is concerned. The top 10% of the Indian population holds 77% of the national wealth. And whatever wealth is getting created, majority of it goes to the topmost or the creamy layer of the society. In fact, many ordinary Indians are not even able to access the healthcare needs, the basic healthcare needs. And almost 63 million of them are pushed into poverty because of the healthcare costs every year. Now, why do I feel, why did I feel like, having these two slides important? Because these two slides tell us why it is whatever is happening in the Indian pharma market, why it is happening the way it is happening. Now, if I were to recap, though the demographics of the Indian healthcare segment suggest that the opportunity is attractive, changing disease profile, affordability, reach are the challenges which we need to look into. These need to be taken care of if one has to make the most of this opportunity. With this, we move to our next section, wherein we look at how the Indian pharma market has evolved. We look at the stages of evolution since 1950 and the events that have shaped the Indian pharma market in the last 2 decades. So Indian pharma market, I have traced the progression of the Indian pharma market since 1950. Whereas there are references where we do get data since 1900, but I really did not have that much robust value data in terms of value. So I've taken the progression since 1950. So if you see over a period of time since 1950 to say the year 2000, the progression was a steady progression. However, in the last 25 years, that's almost 1/4 century, there was a magical exponential growth. Now, if I were to study why things happened the way they have happened, I will have to actually study two things: the different stages in which the Indian pharma market has evolved. So, if I were to talk about stage one, which is till 1970, it was mainly a stage where MNCs dominated, and the market was a largely formulations-driven market. In stage two, which is from 1970 to 1980, rise of domestic companies happened. There was a lot of focus on bulk drugs. From 1980 to 1990, the domestic markets or the domestic firms dominated. There was significant indigenous manufacture of bulk drugs and formulations. And this domination of the Indian firms even continues today. Almost 80% of the Indian pharma market is contributed by the Indian companies, whereas 20% is by MNCs. It's only in a few segments where, like diabetes, or some chronic segments, where MNCs may have a contribution of around 30%. In stage four, which is from 1990 to 2000, there was a significant focus on product innovation, rapid growth, and rising trade surplus. Now this period, which is stage 5, where the maximum exponential growth happened, we see a lot of Indian players, domestic players investing in R&D and clinical trials. There has been increase in the pharma entrepreneurial players. There is entry of innovative therapies in partnerships or solo, MNCs going in solo. Market expansion has happened through a lot of partnerships, and COVID, which happened in 2020, even that has triggered a lot of innovations, because of which we have seen a significant expansion of reach of healthcare in the country. Now, even before going and looking at how different therapies have performed, just let us look at how the demographics and the performance of the Indian pharma market is seen. If you see over here, this is the point where in maximum number of or maximum exponential growth was seen. And if I were to superimpose this with the population growth, it's almost similar. It is in this period of time where significant amount of population growth was seen. Also, the composition of the population started tilting more towards the professional age population, which is again susceptible to getting a lot of chronic disease conditions. Now, IPM has taken giant steps in the last 2 decades that have magnified its growth to meet the demographic demands. What were they? Increased investment in R&D and clinical trials by domestic players. And domestic players who have now become the giant ones, especially they were smaller players probably a few years back or many years back, but then they had their own aspirations to go beyond the domestic market, because for which they had to do these investments in R&D and clinical trials. Innovative therapies entered India because now they have got adequate legal protection, at least for the time period that they are under patent protection. There were a lot of increased partnerships seen for optimal healthcare reach. Several pharma entrepreneurial players ventured into this segment. Biosimilars started getting preference over conventional therapies in certain conditions. I don't say biosimilars replace the conventional therapies, but certain areas like psoriasis or bone health, where biosimilars showed good effect, they started getting preferred. Also, as far as biosimilars are concerned, though the cost of therapy is on a higher side, the results seen are better, they are longer, lesser side effects, and the frequency with which they need to be administered is much lesser. Also, it's not that only innovation and whatever new came through R&D made wonders to this Indian pharma market. The established therapy segments also continued to grow in a few places. Now, why increased investment in R&D and clinical trials had to happen? Because what we have seen of late is drug makers in US have reduced their R&D spend, especially because insurance players over there can actually directly negotiate the drug prices with the manufacturers. And because of increased investment in R&D by domestic players, we see this as a growth opportunity, especially leveraging their strengths in the generics, the biosimilars, also having cost-effective manufacturing, because of which there is an increased penetration in the emerging markets. Also, India as a country has got largest number of US FDA inspected plants and clinical research companies. Now, because of this, what has happened is many Indian players, they have been able to launch blockbuster molecules with either their own research or in research partnerships with some MNC company. There are many molecules, but then I thought, let me take example of just one molecule, saroglitazar, which is a molecule from Zydus Cadila, which has been found to regulate lipid levels in a very good way and showed improved glycemic control in comparison to pioglitazone. And in addition to that, it did not show any adverse effects associated with cardiac safety. This molecule, in a brief period of time, has crossed a turnover of around 400 crore, which is a very commendable achievement for some product which has come from an Indian company. So the new molecules that have been launched in this country, innovation that has come in this country, I have just taken two segments, the diabetes and the cardiac segment. Almost 24 to 25 new molecules have been launched in the diabetes segment. All the molecules, I'm not saying they were very, very superior to the existing therapies, but then there were some complications or some aspects of diabetes which could not be controlled by the existing therapy. That is where this innovation helped. Now, as far as diabetes segment is concerned, all of the products or all the segments were for diabetes control. Whereas if I look at area of cardiology, almost 15 new molecules were launched in this country in the last 2 decades. Antihypertensives, which is almost 50% of the cardiac segment, this segment did not see many new launches, whereas other areas which are less than 50% of the cardiac segment, it is there where a lot of new launches were seen. So cardiac segment again continued to grow to a significant extent because of the traditional antihypertensives. MNCs adopted model of partnerships with prominent Indian companies, because Indian companies also they have better reach. They have better reach with geographic reach, and they have very good equity with the KOLs which matter for the cardio-diabetes segment or for the specialty segment in which MNCs are interested. And Indian companies, this partnership also becomes a win-win situation because they get to launch of something innovative which is globally available in India. Also, what is the advantage that Indian companies had is initially in the initial years, Newer molecules or innovative molecules were launched very late in India as a country. But today, the gap between innovative molecule launches happening globally and India, that gap has actually shortened to a significant extent. So if I look at the innovations, now these are the very few partnerships that I have taken as an example. Many of the innovator companies, this example where Novartis has partnered with multiple Indian companies for in the diabetes segment as well as the cardiac segment. Now, even if you look at the type of partnerships they have had, it's a good strategic partnership. So USP would be a player, which is a strong player in the tier 1 or metro cities. A very strong relationship with the KOLs over here. Whereas Abbott and Emcure enabled Novartis to penetrate the lower tiers. Similarly, if you look at other MNCs, usually in most of the cases, it's one-to-one partnerships. Sun Pharma as a company has partnered with MSD, with Astra to become strong in terms of innovative molecules in the diabetes segment. Again, with Astra, with Bayer for innovations in the cardiac segment. Now, what has helped with this innovation is the cost. Now, what happens is innovative molecules are expensive. So if I were to look at the price per or the cost of treatment per day for diabetes with a traditional molecule, it would have been 4 to 5 rupees. Whereas with an innovator molecule, it would be 40 rupees. It's very expensive. And that is where the market started becoming or started growing in terms of value. Though today the traditional OADs, the glimepiride, metformin, they still dominate the diabetes segment, still there is a shift that is happening. If you see, in the last 10 years, the cardiac market has almost tripled. The diabetes market has actually almost more than tripled. If you look at the number of players, as these are the number of players which operate in the market, in the last 7 to 8 years, the number of players have almost doubled or more than doubled because many of the innovative molecules lost patent and because of which many Indian companies jumped into this segment. Also, what has helped? Innovation has also ensured that we have many more brands with turnover of more than 400 crores. If you see in the initial years, there were very few brands which have crossed a turnover of 400 crores in the diabetes segment and none in the cardiac segment. But today in the cardiac segment, we have close to 12 brands which are 200 crore plus. Over here, we are having 13 brands which are 200 crore plus. And if you look at these 13 brands, they contribute to almost 26%. If you look over here, this is the contribution of these brands, collective contribution of these brands to that particular segment. So close to 26% of the sales of the diabetes segment comes from these 13 brands. This is how innovation has even made the market grow in a significant way. However, it's not that all therapies have seen this type of phenomena, because when I make these type of statements, one ends up feeling that if you are not in the innovative segment, then you have just missed the bus. That is not the case, because we have over here, what I have done is I have arranged all the therapies in descending order of value. Now, because of lot of innovation that has come in cardiac, diabetes segment, they have actually moved up in terms of value. Now, over here in this table, what I have done is I have taken the subgroups which were launched since 2005 and I have seen what is the value of these subgroups. How much out of 29,000 crores, 13,500 crores is from the molecules which were launched since 2005. And what is the contribution of this to the overall? So 46% of the value in the cardiac segment comes from the new launches. In case of diabetes, it is 56%. So cardiac, diabetes, neuro, gynac, antineoplastics, urology, otologicals, these are the areas where new launches have a significant contribution. And if you see, typically they are the chronic segments. However, the rest, if I talk about gastrointestinals, the newer launches or whatever new was launched in 2005, I'm not by new, I don't mean newer brands, I mean newer subgroups. They have contributed to only 13%. Anti-infectives, whatever was launched after 2005, has contributed to only 19%. This essentially means that in these categories, it is the traditional molecules which have done wonders or they have grown. Also, while cardiac segment comes at the top in terms of value, in terms of units, it is the gastro segment which is the number one. After gastro, cardiac could be the number two, but respiratory, pain and analgesics also are some of the segments which actually dominate as far as the units are concerned. They may not dominate as far as the value is concerned because innovations have pushed the value of the other segments. Now, if there is nothing new or not much that is new that is coming in this market, obviously, many of the players in these segments, they play around or they continue promoting the existing molecules, but then there has to be some innovation that needs to come in. That's the reason why we see a lot of innovations in the drug delivery systems, the dosage forms, or some tweaking that may happen in the composition. Some new additive gets added, which enhances the performance. There is a challenge in this also because if there are too many additions that happen in the basic composition, chances of going into band combinations are higher. So we need to have adequate clinical trials also, which help to support the need for that combination. This chart I added because looking at how the different therapies have performed or how the different the contribution of innovation versus contribution of existing molecules. This graph will give you, I'll just take some therapies as example, which will help you to understand what I'm trying to say. If you look at the cardiac segment, it is mainly the volumes which have driven the growth. As I said earlier, antihypertensives are 50% of the cardiac segment. Not much of innovation has happened in the cardiac segment. And this is the antihypertensives or the biggest contributing segment with not too much innovation, which is driving the growth of this segment. Also, if you remember my earlier pie chart, 66% of the non-communicable diseases belong to the cardio, diabetes, and the obesity segment. And that's the reason why this is what we are seeing over here. If I were to look at the diabetes segment, a lot of molecules went off patent and a lot of new introductions came into the picture. That's the reason why I am seeing this growth. Let me look at the derma segment. If you look at the derma segment, not much innovation comes in the derma segment, but then you will see all the three levers of the derma segment are positive. Why this may be happening is uh, we actually checked which are the therapy areas in the derma segment that are really growing well. We've seen that there is a cosmoderma segment which has really started picking up well. People are actually, I'm not saying beauty conscious, but then people are more conscious about their appearance today, irrespective of the gender, and there is a paying power. So good amount of Botox or anti-aging preparations, which are very expensive, they have also started doing well. There is a flourishing a business of clinics, beauty clinics like Kaya, VLCC, where good amount of products get used. And there are a lot of Indian pharma companies also which have ventured into this segment through their own clinics. If I were to look at urology segment, over here in this segment, it is mainly the urinary incontinence products, which is the number two segment in the urology segment. They are the ones which have grown well. Probably the aging population and the awareness of usage of these products. As far as the other segment is concerned, it's mainly the herbal preparations, Ayurvedic preparations, which have caught up. Now, when we talk about the off-patent opportunity, the off-patent opportunity has got many aspirants in the Indian pharma market. So if I were to look at the number of brands and number of players which existed before these molecules lost patent, it was very limited. After patent loss, the number of brands and number of players have increased significantly. Also, after patents were lost, there were different combinations which came into the market, which were not available globally. But then we could actually show efficacy of these different combinations and make them success with our physicians. So almost, if you look at the DAPA plus DPP4 inhibitor, almost 183 brands, 67 companies. DAPA triple combinations, 136 brands, 50 companies. So off-patent opportunity, many players have started to grab this opportunity. And that is mainly because of the population that is, or eligible population that is available, and the price differential. When I talk about the price differential, if you look at the drop in prices after patent loss, when the branded generics came into the market, they were almost either at one third or one fifth of the price of the original innovative molecule. And once the price reduction happened, we also looked at the increase in quantity consumption. It has doubled or tripled or more than tripled in a few cases. In case of dapagliflozin, if you see, in many places it has become 8 to 10 times. So this is the advantage, or this is the extent or quantum of patient pool that was eligible but could not access these molecules because of the cost aspect. Now, does it mean that just because there is a off-patent opportunity, let me jump into it and make the most of it? Is it very easy? It is not really very easy. For that, let us look at the number of brands which contribute to 80% of the value. So out of the 226 brands that were launched, only 28 brands today contribute to 80% of the vildagliptin and vildagliptin plus combinations market value. In case of sitagliptin, it is 18, linagliptin 7. Over here also, though the newer combinations came into the market, all 183 have not made it big. It is 50 players, which is almost, I would say, one-fourth of this market, which have actually managed to contribute to more than 80% of this market. Even over here, when I talk about vildagliptin, in this 28, we also have these 8 brands. Because though Galvus or vildagliptin, sitagliptin, though these brands went off patent, it doesn't mean they vanished from the picture. The patients who are still on these molecules, they still continue to be there. The diabetologist who prefer writing a MNC product would still prescribe the innovator molecules or innovator brands to the patients who can afford it. But then to the patients who still would want a little cheaper version, they would actually prescribe some other brand. We also looked at the entry barriers to popular innovations, which are still very strong. So if you look at certain molecules like semaglutide, this is a molecule which was launched in Jan 22, a 336 crore with just one brand. It has got its patent protection for at least 2 to 3 more years. So the brand will continue getting strong. But in other places like imiglimin, a 47 crore market, 13 brands, but only 4 brands contribute to 80%. Now this is basically this percentage. I have done 22 divided by 84. So how many? 22 are the number of brands which contribute to 80% of this market. Then if I were to look at over here, finerenone or vericiguat, there are 2 brands. Again, it is under patent protection. The market is 100 crore plus, 76 crore plus, but good patent protection. Whereas bempedoic acid, where there are 20 brands which have ventured into this market, only 3 brands, they contribute to 80%. Balance 70 brands, again, I don't say they are struggling, but they could not make the most of this opportunity. Coming to some other therapy areas, vonoprazole. This is something which is the most talked about nowadays as far as the gastro segment is concerned. The market today is almost 46 crores. It has, and if you see the launch date, it is May 24. In a brief period of 4 to 5 months, the market has become 46 crores. There are 26 players in this market, but there are only 10 players who contribute to 80% of this market. So while it's a very good thing to enter a molecule which is a promising molecule, you really need to have a strategy in place to ensure that you can make the most of this opportunity. Some other molecules which are where there are 1 or 2 strong brands only. These are the brands. But here I would like to say that some good Indian companies like Oxemia is from Zydus. This brand is from Sun Pharma. Devico is from Eisai. Signavir from Emcure. Defisma from Lupin. In many places, it is the Indian players which are having a very strong position, which is a very good thing to discuss. Now, I also, when I'm talking about opportunity, this entire session is about, the opportunities and what are the growth levers. So that's the reason why different slides, a few slides may look disconnected, but I had to bring out this aspect as well on the zonal skew. Because if I look at the zonal skew at the top level, the Indian pharma market to a great extent is equally divided among the different zones. But the variation comes when I look at therapy levels. Cardiac therapy, if you see cardiac and diabetes therapy, it is more prominent in the south zone, followed by west zone. If I look at the gastrotherapy, it is more prominent in the east zone, followed by north zone. It is not that the more number of doctors are sitting over there or more number of patients are sitting over there. That's the reason why these cardio diabeto are stronger in south and west. It depends upon the population size and the demographics. It also depends upon the specialty hospitals where more number of patients go for treatment, especially in cases of cancer or mental health, the neuroscience colleges. Also, if I were to look at prevalence and incidence of diseases, if I were to look at diabetes as a disease, the incidence or prevalence in metros, mega metros is slightly higher, around 13 to 15%, whereas in non-metros, it is slightly lesser, less than 10%. So if you look at south and west, these are the two zones where the number of mega metros are on a relatively higher side. And that is the reason why we see this type of therapy skew across different therapy areas. So if I were to recap this section 2, innovations, partnerships, and focus on research and development have triggered the growth of the Indian pharma market in the last 2 decades. Traditional molecules, especially in the acute segment, have also been getting stronger by the day. While all the zones contribute to the Indian pharma market almost equally, demographics of each zone leads to skew in the dominance of certain therapies. The Indian pharma market constitutes of several players of different sizes, and each player has played a unique role in developing this market. In the next section, we look into the significance of each type of player, each type of pharma player, and the affordable drug options, and what is the calculation for the same. So, there are more than 1,000 plus active pharma players that cater to the varied demands of the Indian healthcare sector. So when I talk about big players, I would classify the players with a turnover of 1,000 crore and above. So companies with a turnover of 5,000 crore and above, they contribute to almost 50% of the Indian pharma market. The big players collectively contribute to almost 80-85% of the Indian pharma market. The mid-sized player another 15% and the small players another 10%. So all the players have got or they have played a significant role in contributing to the growth of the Indian pharma market, in shaping the Indian pharma market, in giving the market its advantages. So let us look at how each set of players have contributed. So if I were to look at the top 50 top players which contribute to 54%, they are actually the long established players. They have got several mega brands. They are strong in at least 4 to 5 therapies. They have a might to acquire. They are so big that if they decide for inorganic growth, they can acquire and establish a wider reach as far as geography is concerned and therapy is concerned. And they are because these players have invested in lot in their R&D, they have actually worked hard to get an entry in the global market. These players are actually well known at a global level. So since these players are known at a global level, they are also considered as eligible partners for innovation to enter into India. So these players to a great extent have influenced entry of innovation into India, because then there is trust with the MNCs for having a good partner to come into India. If I were to name some of these companies, we have players like Sun, Lupin, Cipla, Torrent, etc., which are strong players. Now, these companies did not start, with several therapies. Sun started with a neuro CNS therapy. Lupin, Cipla started with respi therapy, and then they have gradually expanded. Many of these players also took an inorganic route for expansion. For example, Torrent has acquired so many companies to become strong in the derma segment, to become strong in the calcium segment. Some of its brands like Teddy Bar, Shellcal, Chimoral Food are the brands which these are the topmost brands of Torrent, but these are the brands which have been coming from due to their inorganic growth parameter or inorganic growth aspects by acquiring certain companies. The next set of clients, they are established players in the turnover of between 2,000 to 5,000 crores. Now, here they are not strong in 4 to 5 therapies, but they are a few 2 to 3 key therapies in which they are strong, and they focus on strengthening their key areas. They have 2 to 4 strong mother brands. In fact, if I were to ask you to recall the top of the mind brands for players in this segment, it would be slightly difficult and taxing because they have got many strong brands. But over here, since the number of brands are limited, recalling those brands becomes a little easier. For example, as I speak, I would suggest all of you to think as well with me. So when I talk about a company like GSK, what comes to your mind? Brands like Augmentin, Calpol, T-Bact, Betnovate, these are the top of the mind brands. If I talk of a company like USV, Glycomed GP is something which clicks first, followed by Ecosprin EV, Roseday. If I were to talk about a company like IPCA, what strikes is Zerodol, HCQS. If I were to talk about Glenmark, three core brands which come on top of the mind, which are Telma, Ascoril, and Candid. So they are focusing, while these companies do expand to other therapies, they ensure that they focus a lot on their mother brand. The next set of companies are again long timers in the Indian pharma market. They have 1 to 2 strong brands and 1 to 2 strong therapies. Examples over here would be a company like XDC with their brands Electral and Zifi. Himalaya, which is popularly known for its brand Lu 52. When I talk about Blue Cross, which falls in this segment, it is Meftal's Pass. And when I talk about Force, it is Sucrafil. Over here in the 500 to 1000 range companies, usually these are the companies with one therapy, one brand focus, and good number of MNCs fall in this segment. So a company like Janssen would fall in this segment, which is known for Ultraset. Apex would be known for Zincovit. Boehringer for its Jardiance, Glyxambi, Trajenta. So these are the brands with which they have entered the market. In case of Bayer, which also falls in this segment, this company was known for a very long time for its one brand Glucobay. It is of late that they have managed with partnerships to enter different segments like they have Xarelto, Eylea, Kerendia, Verquo, all these innovator molecules they have brought in the country through partnerships. The next set of clients, which is 200 to 500, you will see maximum number of players in this segment. So these are the ones which are the aspirational ones which are dying to grow faster because they have seen that tipping point. Beyond that, they actually join the elite club. They initially start with a niche therapy. They don't start with a niche therapy. There are some which are there in niche therapy, and some of them, they actually start with a general therapy. They utilize their initial success to make it big. One company which comes to my mind time and again in this segment, which has a highly aspirational company growing very fast, is Kepler. In fact, I remember in the last 5 years discussing this company for its different milestones. Like one time it was the fastest growing company which has crossed 100 crores. Second time it was the fastest growing company which has crossed 200 crores. And today it is the fastest growing company which is on the verge of crossing 300 crores, all in a brief period of last 5 years. The next set of companies which are the 100 and 200 crores, which are again niche players, more bottom line driven and more geography focused. Now, even this set of companies, the strategy may not be wrong because they want to focus on their strengths, and which is fine. That also helps. The next set of companies, relatively smaller clients, players. In this, we have a mix. Either it is the upcoming players in the market, which are growing very fast, or there may be long timers which are there with a niche therapy focus and would like to stick around with that same niche therapy focus. And in this set of companies, we also see a good number of players who are third-party manufacturers which have now ventured into the branded generics or generics market. And then the last one is small players with extremely niche presence. Now, while innovators give premium treatment solution, the IPM plays a very important role, or there is a need for affordable treatment options for the masses. And because of that, we have different type of products available in the market. We have innovators, branded generics, generic generics, and Jan Aushadhi. Now, there is a significant price differential between the different players. For example, if this is a pictorial depiction of the cost of an innovator, this is how a branded generic would look. Almost one third price of the innovator. So basically, a branded generic challenges the innovator. But the branded generic also gets challenged by other two set of players, which are the generic generics, which are almost one third of the branded generics, or the products from Jan Aushadhi, which are almost one third, one fourth of the price of branded generics. Now, Jan Aushadhi is basically a government initiative that expands availability of affordable generic medicine and medicinal supplies through the Jan Aushadhi Kendras. We will go through this as well briefly. Majority of the pharma players are operating in this and they are facing challenges from the other two. Now, generic generics as a segment is also becoming an attractive segment for many bigger players. A lot of big companies have ventured into this segment, but then it involves a lot of discounting, low price. So, generating revenue through this segment definitely is a challenge. Now, if I were to look at the different types of drug suppliers within the Indian pharma market, we have branded generics plus patented chain. There is a generic chain and there is a Jan Aushadhi chain. So if I were to look at pricing, now for a same molecule, if it were for a branded generics, if the MRP is 100 rupees, for the generic, the printed MRP would be 90 rupees. And for Jan Aushadhi, the printed MRP would be 30 rupees. MRP without GST, we apply the percentages. Here it comes to 89, 80 and 26 or 27 rupees. Now for generic generics, the advantage comes over here. For the branded generics, again, your 18% value, 18% formula, the PTR is around 71 rupees. But then for a generic, the advantage is on the PTR, the price to the retailer that can be given, the discount that can be given. Whereas in case of Jan Aushadhi, again, it follows the same mathematical formula that a branded generic follows. So basically, as far as the discount advantage is concerned, generics have a significant discount advantage that can be given to the retailer and which brings down the MRP down. Now, if I were to look at using this formula or this pricing, if I were to use this pricing of 30 and 21, how big would the market would look? So the branded generics plus patented market is approximately 2.2 lakh crore. This is around 40,000 crore and this is around 6,000 crore. So collectively, this market would be somewhere around 2.7 lakh crore. Now again, this is 2.7 lakh crore when I consider this as the PTR. However, if I were to multiply the units with this PTR, then how would the market look? Then the market is a much bigger market. It's around 3.4 lakh crore and more. Now, again, I don't have a very strong source of market value. This is again my research that I've had with different stockists, different companies to arrive at this value. But then if I were to consider all these segments, the Indian pharma market at the impacted value PTR would be around 3.4 lakh crore market. The number of distributors in this chain, the branded generics, which is the biggest chain, we have close to 30,000 authorized distributors. Over here, we have close to 5,000 authorized distributors, and over here, there are close to 100 authorized distributors. Number of suppliers. What I mean by suppliers is the manufacturing or the pharma companies. 1,000 plus over here. For generics, it is 1,000 plus. And for Jan Aushadhi, these are the ones which are shortlisted by Government of India for certain molecules, 100 plus companies. Number of outlets. Over here, we have close to 8 lakh over outlets, 8 lakh outlets, retail outlets. Over here also, in fact, there is an overlap between these outlets because a vendor or a retailer who keeps branded generics would also keep generic. And usually this generics component is a sort of walk-in component. It depends upon what type of patient comes in and what he asks for and what he, persists that this is what I want. Now, the generic component would depend from a retailer moving out would actually vary from state to state. Probably it would be higher in states like UP, Bihar. It may be lower in states or cities like Mumbai. In case of Jan Aushadhi, as of today, there are close to 14,000 plus outlets. And the plan is to take it to 50,000 in the near future. As far as the logistics is concerned, for these two, it is the simple logistic of supplier to CNFA to distributor to retailer. Whereas for Jan Aushadhi, the supplier gives it to a central body, which is with the government of India. And there is an ethics group which manages the logistics and takes these products from the central location to the different retailers all over the country. So this is in brief how the three different chains operate within the country. Now, if I were to recap this section, big and small pharma players have played a crucial role in shaping the Indian pharma market. They have also leveraged the growth opportunity well in some of the most promising segments. Over 100 plus branded generic players and sorry, not 100, 1,000 plus branded generic players and 1,000 plus generic players and 100 plus Jan Aushadhi players ensure adequate supply of medicine to the Indian masses at an optimal price point. Beside drug supplies, there are many other aspects in the healthcare system that have gained popularity, especially in post-COVID times. There are government policies that have supported a right to health and resources to support the increasing healthcare demand. So in the next section, we will very briefly look at the other aspects of the healthcare ecosystem within the country. So if I were to talk about the initiatives taken by government, there are multiple initiatives. Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which is more health insurance focused, which covers almost 500 million people. Then Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, which is aimed to create digital health ecosystem so that it promotes telemedicine, teleconsultation to the deep pockets of the country. National Digital Health Mission, which is establishing the digital health framework of the country. PM Cares for Children scheme, especially for providing financial health and educational assistance to children who have been orphaned in the COVID pandemic. National Policy for Rare Diseases, which provides financial support for the treatment of rare diseases, aiming to make treatment accessible to patients across the country. Health and wellness care centers, which is more focusing on the primary health care by establishing a lot of health and wellness centers in different places. One nation, one ration card scheme to ensure availability of ensure essential medicines and foods more accessible to migrant workers. Telemedicine or the e-Sanjeevani platform, which is focusing in providing e-consultations, teleconsultations. The Pradhan Mantri Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana, which we have just discussed in the previous slide, and there are many more. I've just taken a very few ones, but then there are several initiatives that have been taken to ensure right to health for all the Indian masses. Now, technological interventions for better healthcare reach and participation of non-pharma giants have gained momentum in the post-COVID times. Let us talk about just a few technological innovations. First is the online pharmacy, where the focus is more on convenience of ordering, discounts offers, economical options, and reordering automation. Let us look at where this system was pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, the market was a very small market. It was around 2 to 3 billion, but post-COVID, it's almost 26 billion market and is expected to reach around 89 billion by 2027. In the pre-COVID times, it was primarily the small startups. Now it is major players like Reliance, Amazon, Tata. They have seen the opportunity, leading to a lot of corporatization in this sector. Earlier, the entire thing was limited mostly to the urban areas. But today, significant growth of e-pharmacies has ensured that this reaches even to the rural areas. And there are significant partnerships for the last mile delivery, which ensures that drugs actually reach the consumers when the order is placed online. Annual growth rate pre-COVID, it was close to 10 to 15%. In COVID times, it was 60%. And now it has stabilized to 20%. Consumer preferences. Earlier, the consumer preferred traditional pharmacies. Now, even you can make out that you prefer ordering online, the way you order all your other things in life. Ordering medicines online is actually a way of life, and especially for chronic ailments where you really need to take one tablet every day. Market share. Traditional pharmacies earlier had dominated, but today the share of online pharmacies ranges anywhere between 10% to 30% in different states. It may be 10% in one state, it may be 30% in some other state of some other region. Pharmacy chains like Apollo Pharmacy, MedPlus, Wellness Forever, they get their own economies of scale. They have their private labeling and they focus a lot on inventory optimization. In pre-COVID times, there were independent pharmacies which dominated, but then organized pharmacies like Apollo, MedPlus, Wellness Forever, they have increased significantly. Limited adoption was there, especially in urban areas, but now there is a significant growth in urban as well as rural area. This combined with online orders for medicine, wellness, and diagnostics has actually helped in the growth of these pharmacies. Earlier, as far as the supply chain and cold storage investments were concerned, it was basic logistics. But today, there is a significant investment in the cold chain, digital management to ensure temperature control, and other sensitive pharmaceutical products. Technology and digital infrastructure, earlier the usage was limited, but post-COVID, everything has expanded like anything. Coming to teleconsultations, what do teleconsultations give? They give access to specialty consultation, cost savings for follow-up visits, improved medication adherence because people don't miss a doctor visit if you can actually meet a doctor online. Earlier, there were fewer than 1 million annually. Now, the e-Sanjeevani platform that the government has established, it had almost 12 million consultations in 2021, the COVID time. And collectively, it is expected, it was around 100 million consultations. The market growth earlier, growth earlier was 8 to 10%, but now the expected CAGR is expected to cross 31%. Earlier revenue was around 300 crore, but the revenue is expected to reach close to 5,000 crore by 2025. Also, earlier when it comes to teleconsultation, it was more restricted towards the urban patients and that too for specialized care. But today, it is the rural patient and even a not so specialized care, the teleconsultation can be done. Also, traveling becomes easier because even if you have to go and meet the doctor face to face for the first visit, the checkups or follow-ups can happen online. Doctor appointment apps. There are many other COVID-triggered innovations that have come into picture. So there are doctor appointment apps like Practo, SMINC, Librate, HealthFlix, Amwell, My Healthcare, wherein they help in easily locating the specialty of the doctor next to you, getting appointments as per convenient time slots. There are auto reminders for follow-up visits. Not just this, there are similar range of services for locating pathology labs equipped with the facilities for desired test. All pathology labs don't do all tests. So if you want a specific test, you can go to this site or go to this app and search the laboratory of your convenience. Also, healthcare services at your doorstep. Healthcare at home is one such example. There is a gradual progress also seen in some of the most important healthcare support services like the hospitals. If you see pre-COVID and post-COVID, the number of hospitals 10,000, public hospitals increased from 10,000 to 12,000, private hospitals from 30,000 to 38,000, specialty hospitals from 3,500 to 4,000. And if you look at the hospital beds, they have moved from 1.1 million to almost 1.3 million. If I were to look at the doctors and the medical colleges, total medical colleges pre-COVID, 387 moved to 706. Number of seats almost doubled from 50,000 to 1 lakh plus. For postgraduate, it has moved from 30,000 to 50,000 seats. The new medical colleges approved. There are close to 157 new colleges approved, of which 108 are already functional. The number of graduates per year, the MBBS graduates, 50,000 to 1 lakh. The number has almost doubled. I'll go to this later on. Coming to the nursing colleges, the number of nursing colleges have also increased significantly from 5,700 to 8,500. The auxiliary nurse or midwife seats have moved from 50,000 to 54,000. The general nursing seats have moved from 85,000 to 90,000. BSc nursing seats from 65,000 to 80,000. MSc nursing seats from 8,000 to 10,000. So there is a significant increase in the number of hospitals, the number of colleges for doctors and the nurses for the different levels of graduation or post-graduation. Pharmacy graduates, who also form a very important role for the pharma sector, whether you want them in the sales, marketing, R&D, or any other section. If you look at this aspect, the number of colleges, pharmacy colleges has moved from 2,300 to 3,200. The diploma seats from 1.5 lakh to 1.9 lakh, degree seats from 1.5 lakh to almost 1.7 lakh. And annual graduates, whether it is diploma or degree, it has moved from 2 lakh to 3 lakh because for catering this pharma sector, you really require people who understand drugs, how they work, whether it is for R&D or for promotion. So if I were to recap this last section, several aggressive initiatives have been taken up by the government of India to ensure healthcare benefits across all sections of the society and geographies within the country. COVID-triggered innovations have added the aspect of convenience of healthcare to everyone. Healthcare infrastructure has also catching up in pace to meet the demands of the growing population and healthcare needs. Pharma companies have upgraded and used all these aspects to make the most of the healthcare growth opportunity within the country. To summarize, the Indian pharma market continues to be a promising market for domestic as well as global players. Changing disease patterns, age demographics, and our lifestyle have deeply impacted the evolution of this segment. Big and small players have played a key role in shaping this market today. So there are a lot of exciting times ahead for our segment, our pharma segment. I am Sheetal Saple and my team member Richard Chaudhary. Both of us have worked together to get this research paper to you. If there is any feedback, suggestion, kindly feel free to reach out to us. About PharmaRack as a company, we are first of its kind e-commerce platform, a technology company for solving core trade problems of the Indian pharma industry. We build inclusive tech-led products catering to the needs of pharma brands, chemists, distributors, and manufacturers, providing them a level playing field to scale, trade, and grow their business. Anchored and powered by leading Indian pharma companies to strengthen trade in India, PharmaRack is India's largest business-to-business commerce platform across categories. Our core offerings are Farm Analytics platform, wherein we look at analytics and insights on sales, marketing, supply chain, uniquely driven through on-platform and off-platform data capture. Farm Connect Stockings platform, which strengthens the distributor operations with a two-way visibility and returns management. Farm Retail Chemist platform, best-in-class features for company to retailer engagement and loyalty building. This was a very brief and crisp understanding of what we offer. To know more about us, please do visit us on this app, on this email, on this site. Thank you so much for joining us today and sparing your valuable time. Have a great week ahead. Thank you so much.